Welcome. I'm Ina Freed, Chief Technology Correspondent at Axios, and I'm so glad that you're all here, whether it's in our room here at Axios House in Davos or following along on the web. Today we're going to have a really dynamic set of conversations around where all this AI stuff is going. We're going to look at the building blocks, whether that's dynamic grids, clouds, all that sort of thing, what it takes to power all the places we know we want to go. And with that, I'd like to welcome our first guest, Thomas Kurian, the CEO of Google Cloud. Thomas. So it's been a pretty good few months for you. You know, Google's Cloud, we're hearing a lot more about it. Talk about, obviously, I don't think you were as out of the race a couple months ago as people said. I don't think, the race is over, but what's changed in the market dynamics? What's fueling the momentum that Google's Cloud seems to have?
I think we've been working on this for a long time, which is, to do AI well, we've built a vertically optimized stack of technology from our own chips, our own models, our own tools and applications on top of it. And then we've integrated it into our scaled consumer services, so search, ads, YouTube. We've also seen huge pickup for our Gemini app. And then we've also integrated into our enterprise cloud services. We have close to 130,000 companies using it. And all that helped improve both the quality of the model as well as the foundational breakthroughs we were making. And so for us, it's been a 3-year journey, and we're very confident not just on where we are now, but our path forward as well.
And on that, well, we'll get to the future in one sec, but, in today, you're meeting with customers, your competitors are meeting with customers. If I'm a CIO, and I'm deciding between your cloud, AWS, or Microsoft Azure, what's one reason that you would point to that people should go to Google Cloud that maybe wasn't as true a year ago?
At the core, we have our own chips and models. Just like in personal computing, to do it well, you either had to own, as Intel owned the processor, or somebody owned the operating system. If you don't own chips and models, you're just a distributor. And so we're the only one who have both.
And talk about where we're going, because obviously AI is moving fast. I still feel like the technology underlying all this is changing faster than anything I've seen. What's something businesses will be doing with AI by the end of the year that they're probably, maybe not even on their radar right now, but certainly that they're not doing today?
Broad brush, if you look at where people are using our AI tools within companies, they're doing 4 things with them. One, many companies are taking products and building digital versions of those products. So for example, if you're a manufacturing company, adding a control system with a human interface that can talk to your manufacturing systems using large language models. If you're a consumer services company, for example, creating digital tools around the model itself. So we've seen many people build agents for education, for healthcare, a variety of things, and offering that. So one is really building a digital product. Second is transforming the interface between you and the customer. So for example, the way that shopping is working online is changing. We have huge interest on agentic commerce, the way that companies serve their customers online, the way that governments serve citizens online. They're all changing using these tools because you can have them help people find information and answer questions in a much richer way than before. Third is transforming the core of the company. If you're a securities firm, improving settlement. If you're a bank, speeding up issuance of credit cards and loans. If you're an insurance company, changing the way you do claims processing. If you're a healthcare institution, changing how you're planning your surgical procedures and how you manage your hospital beds. And then lastly, in the IT organization, we've seen huge changes in software engineering, in cybersecurity professionals using AI to identify threats and start defending against them, and in the way that people are analyzing information.
So I think a lot of people come to Davos every year, and certainly since the arrival of ChatGPT, it's a lot of everyone wants to know what should I be doing, what shouldn't I be doing. You know, most of the companies they did pilots 2 years ago. They tried to move things into production last year. Some are succeeding, some are getting stuck. So I want to talk about what you're seeing. So for customers that are succeeding, that are getting positive returns in AI, what are the one or two things that they're doing that are allowing them to succeed? And then we'll get to the folks that aren't having as much success.
Broad brush, the ones that are doing it well, one, they're organizing their data, because if your data is not well organized, complaining that the model is not finding the right information doesn't make a lot of sense. Second, they ensure that they're not just using the model, but they're actually transforming the core process itself rather than draping a model on top of an existing system. They're changing. Take a simple example. If you think of customer service, the leaders have changed where instead of having a human in front with a model behind it, having the model in front with a human behind it. And that drastically improves how well the model starts understanding the needs of the customer to help resolve the problem. So I would say the three things: organize your data, ensure you have a strong foundation. So things like your security protections, cyber defenses, et cetera, around that layer is built in. And third, rethink the process where you're using and depending on the model to do more things, as opposed to just putting the model as a sidecar on top of a human process.
So obviously, I mean, on the flip side, obviously, if companies aren't ready with their data, that's one reason they're stalled. For other companies that get stuck, that don't see the ROI they were hoping for, besides data readiness, what's one thing that companies that aren't having the success they want tend to do wrong?
I think when AI is driven as a pure technology project, often it fails because the business line doesn't understand and doesn't agree on the metric that they're going for. So if you look at just customer service, just using that as a single process, some companies that we work with see it as improving retention of existing customers, who if you don't do it well, they're frustrated and they will churn. So for example, insurance claims processing, speeding up claims resolution is the best way to retain customers. Other people who have a broad product portfolio are really keen on using customer service to drive conversion and upsell on product. Now, if you're a single product company, that's not a key metric. But the way that you do upsell using a model is very different than the way you do resolution. And the third, still others say, well, I want to use it as a way to optimize my cost to serve. So for example, if you're in banking, one of the challenges people have is serving the long tail of consumers with financial advice, because the cost of having a human advisor doing it works fine at the top tier with the private banking, but at the long tail, you can't do it. But the tools are available to serve the long tail. Now, you have to decide up front, are you focused as a customer on churn reduction,
You have to figure out what is it you're using AI for.
And if you don't agree, then you end up measuring the wrong thing.
That makes sense. There's a couple questions that I think you're in a great position to answer that I've been wondering around for a while. One is on the business front. I'm curious, obviously AI spending is going through the roof, but you run a cloud business. I'm curious how much of that is new investment versus companies shifting what they were spending on cloud in other areas to AI, because I'm sure this is something you all look at.
I mean, we've seen growth in many different parts of our portfolio. Broad brush, I would say traditional cloud spending continues to grow. And then there are either new departments coming in. So if you're in a supply chain, you may be using these tools now to plan your supply position much more accurately than you could do before. So typically we're seeing more projects coming in certain industries. And then we're also seeing faster growth in different geographies.
And then also, I'm curious because you support both open models as well as proprietary, including your own, as
Yes.
well as Anthropic and others. And I'm curious, do customers, is that how they look at this? Do they come to you wanting open or closed source, or how does that play out? Or is it just particular use case?
Most customers are trying to decide for a domain what model they choose to use. Some customers pick a model for the whole company, other customers pick a model for a domain. I think as the models have gotten more and more sophisticated, in the past, a lot of people said, I'm going to take an open weights model and then fine tune it for my needs. That's becoming less and less necessary because the base models have become a lot more skilled. And secondly, you can tune a model to your data without needing to touch the weights, using different forms of things like understanding context, having larger context windows. There's a lot less need to do sort of traditional fine tuning. And so we are seeing people now pick up for example, Gemini as a model, and then maybe pick Gemini for one part of their company and pick another one for another part of their company.
And then, one of the questions I've been asking everyone is a lot of talk about an AI bubble, and I always try and refine that a bit. When there's a bubble, it's not saying the thing isn't real. The dot-com bubble wasn't a bubble because the internet wasn't real. It's really an economic thing of investing too much to get a return in a reasonable amount of time. And I'm curious, from your perspective, is there evidence of an AI bubble anywhere? And if so, where in the sector do you see it?
I can tell you how we at Google are looking at it. We're very focused on a couple of dimensions. Number one, making sure that when we build our model, we monetize it in as many ways as possible. So we maximize the return on investment we're getting, and that allows us to have real strength financially to continue to invest going forward. Secondly, we've also seen that the best way to monetize the model is to monetize it in as many different ways as possible. And so for example, we monetize it through some of our scale surfaces, search, advertising, YouTube. We also monetize it through some new surfaces on the consumer side, like our Gemini app with paid subscriptions. And then on the enterprise side, we've seen huge growth as people have started picking it up, whether it was for coding and developers paying for coding or in different parts of the lines of business. And so our long-term goal has always been to make sure we're responsible in the way we're investing. And the best way you can do that is actually to maximize the number of different ways we monetize. And we monetize every layer, not just the model, but many labs use our chips, our silicon, something called TPUs, to train the models. So if you look at the total universe as how many intelligent tokens are being generated, we have the largest, most diverse portfolio of ways to do that.
And if something does pop, do you see a sector who's most likely to be hurt? Mike, I was already guessing you weren't going to say Google, but do you think it'll be larger companies? Do you think it'll be enterprises that overspent silicon? Where is the most froth?
Some valuations just don't make sense, but that's always about individual companies, and investors are free to make their opinion on which ones.
One of the things that has changed in the last year, very good answer. I knew you were going to say something along those lines. One of the things that has really changed in the last year that's not as visible, you've been building this custom silicon, these TPUs for a while now. Until recently, you were using them exclusively for yourselves. Other people are buying TPUs now. What does that mean? First of all, does that money go to your business? Do you get to benefit from those chip sales? And how do you evaluate how much you want to share that technology and profit from selling it to others versus keeping it as a competitive advantage?
Google's always been a platform company. And so when we looked at silicon, for example, we were not looking at it just for AI or large language model companies. We saw that capital markets were going to switch how they did algorithmic trading to using AI inference for it. We saw that high performance computing was going to shift. And so starting about 3 years ago, we started making these available to people, and we've been super pleased with the results. We offer both our own chips as well as NVIDIA chips to customers, and we've seen really strong growth for it, and we will continue to offer the best of our platform to people.
Well, thank you so much. Unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it there. Please give a round of applause for
Thank you.
Thomas Kurian, CEO of Google Cloud.